Welcoming each of you. There are some old faces here and new faces, so thank you for joining us. Before we proceed with the meeting, I would like to remind everyone that we are on YouTube Live and welcome our online visitors. We will begin our first order of business by swearing in our new members and recognizing our outgoing members. So if I could have Mr. Stephen Bell, Mr. Will Paul, and Ms. Tamara Carter to come to the front for the swearing in. Do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States, and I will faithfully discharge my duties as a member of North Carolina State Advisory Council on Indian Education. I will, to the best of my ability, advise the State Board of Education on effective educational practices for American Indian students, explore programs that raise academic achievement and graduation rates among American Indian students, advise the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction on ways to improve coordination and communication for the benefit of American Indian students affected by state and federal programs administered at the state level, prepare and present an annual report to the State Board of Education, tribal organizations, and the conferees at the annual North Carolina Indian Unity Conference, and advise the State Board of Education on any other aspect of American Indian education when requested by the State Board, educators, parents, students, business leaders, and other constituents.
I did.
Thank you, and welcome to Stacy. At this time, we will recognize our outgoing members, Mr. Rodney Jackson, Miss Maria Jacobs, Miss Elena Freeman is here accepting that on her behalf, and Miss Tina Lance. So the North Carolina State Board of Education and the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction recognizes and appreciates Mr. Rodney Jackson and Miss Maria Jacobs for their dedication to promoting academic achievement and high school graduation for Native American students as a member of the State Advisory Council on Indian Education. So we are certainly excited about our new members, and we appreciate our outgoing members for their commitment and dedication to the State Advisory Council on Indian Education. Mr. Rodney Jackson would like to speak briefly.
It has been an honor to serve. I retired back in June, and it didn't say retired, but maybe a week, and I've gone to work at Darlington, South Carolina. Don't know how long that's going to last, but it's been an honor to serve with Stacey and get to know everybody. But beyond getting this award, I just want to take a moment to say I bought this for myself, and I want to do this for Angelique. Angelique's going through her second battle of cancer, and her third battle of cancer, and I want to take a moment to say I love you, and praying for you, and continue to pray for you. Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and Ms. Angelique will keep you in our prayers and thoughts as you undergo this challenging process. At this time, we are going to proceed with our roll call. Mr. Jeremiah Moore.
Present.
Cameo Lanning. Honey. Amanda Prescard.
Present.
Calvin Locklear.
Here.
Tamara Carter. Will Paul.
Present.
Stephen Bell.
Here.
Stacy Lynch.
Present.
Angelique Jacobs.
Present.
Brandy Jacobs.
Present.
Miss Dorothy Stewart Yates.
Here.
Representative Edward Goodwin. Representative Jared Lowry. Dr. LaRonda Lowry.
Here.
I am here. Dr. Olivia Oxendine.
Here. Here.
And then our DPI staff are also joining us. Dr. Susan Silver, Dr. Kelly Briggs, and Miss Quinsala Richardson.
Present for all three.
Thank you. We have a quorum. So our first item is approval of today's agenda.
I make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We also shared the minutes with you guys previously to the meeting. I hope you've all had an opportunity to review those minutes. Do we have a motion to approve our minutes?
I move to approve the minutes. Talking to the microphone.
Yeah, make sure you speak into your microphone.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Next on our agenda, we have a distinguished guest with us today, Superintendent Catherine Troit. Thank you for joining us today, who will be delivering a welcome address to the State Advisory Council on Indian Education. Welcome indeed.
Thank you, Chair Locklear. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all today at the fall quarterly meeting for SACE. It's been since January since I was with you all, and at that time I was presented with this book that I see all of you have in front of you today. And as I recall, this book was written many years ago in response to the inaccurate portrayal of Native Americans in so many textbooks. And I'm proud to say that this book is actually on display Down on the second floor, which is where the offices of the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction are, it is proudly on display in the lobby area of the second floor for all to see. This is a beautiful book if you've not had a chance to look at it before, and something that I certainly count amongst my prized possessions. To our new members, thank you so much for serving on SACY, and to our outgoing members who are departing, thank you for your service to our state, and all that you have accomplished on behalf of students. You should all feel proud today. Your dedication to improving outcomes for North Carolina's Indian American students is admirable. A lot of times people will say, well, our percentage of American Indian students as compared to the rest of the state is very small. But my response to that is that there are 15,000 American Indian souls in our state, in our students. And that is not a small number. In fact, even one would not be a small number. And so we are home in North Carolina to the largest American Indian tribe in the eastern part of the nation, something that I'm sure I don't have to tell all of you. And each of these students and their families deserve our best, and they deserve fierce advocates like yourselves. And I want to highlight some of the work and some of the accomplishments that have occurred since January when I was with you last. So you started off January hosting the American Indian Education Summit, and I was so grateful to be able to attend. In fact, I see some folks in our audience who were part of a very lively panel that had us all in stitches as we were learning about the past and SACY's work from years ago. In March, we saw the passing of the American Indians Graduating with Honors Act, and it became law in June. And this bill is significant because it provides our Native students the opportunity to openly honor their culture and heritage that shaped who they are, in particular in proud moments like a high school graduation. And so it's incredible, an incredible way to show our students how they are supported. So thank you all for being such strong advocates of that legislation. This bill tells our American Indian students that we recognize how significant their culture is to them and that we are proud of it too. And this is just one of the many ways that we support our students, but this right is undoubtedly deeply, deeply moving for them. And I want to take a minute to talk about literacy, because this is something that is near and dear to everyone in this room. And that is the ability of all students, but in particular our American Indian students, to be able to achieve the post-secondary plans of their choice by being proficient in reading and math. And we know what all students prior to the pandemic, all students were struggling in reading and math when we look at our data. But about 2 years ago, this state embarked on a new initiative for early literacy instruction, which is to say we are committed to returning to a phonics-based approach, or the science of reading, to early literacy instruction. And I am excited to tell this group that when we look at our K-3 reading data, our students in North Carolina have skyrocketed in their early literacy skills. But in particular, I want to talk about the Native American community in North Carolina. So in the aggregate, our Native American kindergarten through third graders were proficient in their early literacy skills at a rate of 29%. So less than a third were proficient in those early reading skills. But in just one school year, they jumped to 52% proficient. More than half in just one school year. Y'all, we've been lucky to see gains of 3 to 5% every year, and now we've seen a gain of 23% in just 1 year. It's incredible progress that I know is going to continue. And then finally, I am so excited to tell everyone in this room, if you don't know already, that after years and years of advocacy from this group and from the Department of Public Instruction, just this week, the General Assembly announced its conference budget, which was voted on overnight and has been sent to the governor. This conference budget has a provision authorizing the Department of Public Instruction to create a full-time position for American Indian Affairs. We must do all we can to promote equity and improved outcomes for our American Indian students. So I'd like to personally thank not just this committee, but also specifically Dr. Olivia Oxendine for her service in this capacity, working as a member of the council as well as on the North Carolina State Board of Education. So while we've certainly seen some wins this year, there is more work to be done, and we are dealing with continued challenges in all of our communities across the state, but specifically for our Indian students. And one central focus in this area includes feeling what has been described to me is a lack of collaboration and consultation between our school districts and our American Indian tribes. This agency is dedicated to supporting all of its students, but especially those whose subgroups are underperforming compared to their peers. And so we're happy to be the conduit that helps you initiate or sustain communication with our districts, whether it's inviting a representative of the council to speak or holding calls with information officers or amplifying and sharing your initiatives to a broader audience via social media or newsletters. We will partner with you, and we cannot wait to work with you all to make sure that this position is everything that you hoped it would be. So I'm a firm believer that as professionals in the education field, our top priority must be keeping students at the center of all that we do. It is the North Star of my strategic plan that students are at the center of all we do. And that includes every student and every group of students, and whatever their unique circumstances are. To have voices such as yours be such strong advocates on behalf of these students and showing the importance of representation and everyone having a both literal and figurative seat at the table is invaluable. So thank you all for inviting me to come and speak with you today, for being part of the council, and your continued commitment to elevating the voices of our American Indian students and ensuring that they are all successful on their K-12 journey. Thank you. I'll turn it back to you. Yeah.
So at this time, we'll open up for Q&A for Superintendent Truitt. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Chair Lady Locklear, this is Olivia.
Good morning, Dr. Oxendine.
Good
Thank you for
morning
joining us.
to everyone. I just want to kind of piggyback on the superintendent's statements about literacy and encourage the SACE, each member, that you take her message about the gains that we're beginning to see in reading, especially with our students in the lower grades. Specifically, that was such good news about our kindergarten students that Superintendent Truitt just shared. But please take that message, that good news, back to your communities, because far too long we as a SACE have perused over EOG and EOC, but specifically EOG, dismal data, and now we're beginning to see a glimmer of hope. So please take the message that you just heard and the good news that you just heard from the superintendent back to your communities. If our kids can't read, then our tribes won't succeed in the short term and especially the long term. We have to have reading American Indian people. And we are, thanks to Superintendent Truitt and all of her hard work in the agency and across the street and the General Assembly, we're beginning to see a change in the trajectory. So thank you, Superintendent, for joining us this morning. And thank you, Chair Lady Locklear, for giving me just a minute or two at the mic.
Thank you, Dr. Otsenay. Any questions?
Will this position start immediately, the new position?
And will what? This position? So it will as soon as the budget becomes law. Then we will start the process of creating the job description and posting the position and then hiring for the position. And I can tell you that moves at the speed of state government. So we'll have to be a little patient, but we will be working on it. We will start working on it as soon as the budget becomes law.
Hope I can get to it. I'd like permission to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my name is Jeremiah Moore. I'm a principal within the public schools of Robeson County, and I have a student demographic that's roughly 81% American Indian this year. And I say that to say I've done a little bit of research to see that the way schools are evaluated and performance grades could be potentially changing. Because when we're sitting here talking about the success of our American Indian students, there's much more to be said than just that it's a D school that met growth. So when I have that conversation and we look at this end of year data, whether it be an EOG or the check-in assessments, whatever data source we're using, we have to have a more holistic picture of what success looks like and what those successes look like for our students. So could you speak just briefly about how that plan may be changing and how schools will be evaluated differently in the future, if that's approved or if it does change?
Yes, sir. May I respond?
Absolutely.
So may I ask what grade level you are a principal for?
So I'm at a traditional middle school, so I'm
Middle school.
6'8".
Bless your heart. Okay. So, and by the way, there will be professional development for middle school teachers around literacy coming in this fall. So a year from now, it's coming. We've got to provide adolescent literacy professional development for all of our middle grades teachers, core teachers. So what he's referring to is what we call school performance grades. By law, every school gets a grade, and that grade is calculated solely on end of grade test scores. So it's an algorithm of 80% achievement on basically just reading and math tests. In middle school, certainly it's just reading and math tests, and 20% growth. So if a school grows, that 20% is not really enough to change a letter grade of a school. And so all that letter grade is measuring is proficiency in reading and math. And while it's important that we not turn away from accountability, we need to know what percentage of students are proficient and not in reading and math. There are also other things that we should be holding schools accountable for, and other ways besides just test scores that, by the way, occur one day of the year for a few hours that are determining these schools' letter grades. And so there are lots of ways that schools serve students, especially low-income schools. And so what my vision has been from the start, and I actually ran on this issue when I was campaigning, we need to have a multi-measure approach to defining school quality and student success that does look at reading and math proficiency, but also looks at other things as well. And so what we did was we created a statewide grassroots effort that included representation from various communities in all of our 8 education regions across the state. And we came up with, that group decided that they wanted different indicators for elementary school, middle school, and high school. And so, or it may just be elementary school and then 6-12. And so that work now is almost finished. The group moved from lots of different types of members like higher ed, parent communities, teachers, and now it's just local superintendents who are helping us with this work. And we will be bringing a plan to the legislature in the short session, which will begin this spring in late April, that will because this state model sits in legislation, so we can't change it without legislation. These other factors that will be considered are things like chronic absenteeism. 31% of students in North Carolina right now are chronically absent. If they're not at school, they can't learn to read. And as Dr. Oxendine said, if they can't learn to read, they're not going to succeed. So, chronic absenteeism. Participation for high schools in College Career Promise. Free credentials for students. If parents and students don't know through their school about these programs, then they're not going to know to participate in them. School climate. What do teachers say about their school leaders? Do parents feel comfortable getting the help that they need at the school? Is it a safe place? All of the things that great leaders do to create a school where people want to be. And then things like, is there at least one school day or after school, this is for elementary school, one in-school or after-school activity, at least one, that a student could participate in. Because good principals, even in low-income schools, find ways to create opportunities for kids. They go after grants, they get donors to donate equipment, whatever it is, bring programs to the school. So we want to extend the definition of a high-performing school to include all of these other things, so that we're not just looking at math and reading scores. They're important, but there needs to be more. And I'll say one more thing. Those of you who are employers know that you're not going to ask someone what they got on the ACT when you hire them. You're not going to ask them, how did you do on your 8th grade math EOG? You want to know, can they communicate? Can they collaborate? Do they have a sense of personal responsibility? Do they have a learner's mindset? Are we teaching kids to learn how to learn? The content that we teach kids is important for sure, but it's not enough. We also have to teach durable skills that young people are going to need to be successful after high school. And so we used to call those soft skills, right? But it's so much more than soft. They're durable skills. They're skills that last a lifetime. Empathy, personal responsibility, all communication, critical thinking, collaboration, all of those things are so important. And so we created the North Carolina Portrait of a Graduate. And we want to see, we created rubrics, we're creating assessments now, we created collateral for parents to look at. And so we want for our schools and for our teachers to infuse these skills in their daily teaching so that our students are prepared for life after high school. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yes, Shirley Locklear and Superintendent. I wanted to go back to the position that we're looking at now, where it's been appropriated through the General Assembly. Just wanted to ask, would that position be housed in your office or at a different level within the DPI structure? And I know this is very soon in the process, and you may not know the answer to that yet. So just want to kind of see what your thoughts are.
So technically, what the legislature did was give the department the authority to to find a position. So we have to find that position, and then OSBM will kind of dictate what the class and compensation of that is. But what I can tell you is that it will very likely be housed in academic standards, because that's the message that I've gotten from this group. That's where I mean, I don't know that I don't think that you would want it in I mean, I can't think of another place that it would belong. It would need to be in academic standards, yeah.
Makes sense. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, thank you for allowing me to speak. You mentioned, Ms. Truitt, about having a safe space in the school systems. Well, just this past weekend, Warren County Schools actually experienced what I'm having to talk to my students. They don't feel safe culturally within the school. They posted their high school spirit week, and the day was Western and cultural diversity, where Western inspired cultural themes, native costumes, or culturally mixed categories is what the school district was trying to do for this particular high school. And my Native American students are very upset at this point, and typically I've spoke to several of them this past week, and they don't feel safe going to school with their peers at this point. Their peers are upset because they didn't get a chance to actually dress as Native American Day. They don't understand what the big ordeal was. The school system have came back and apologized, but they turned it around saying that, you know, it was kind of like a mistake. What they really meant to do was to give our Native American students an opportunity to dress again in their costume. And the point that I actually spoke to the superintendent, they were very gracious. A lot of the school board members did come out. We had our community back to school powwow. He did apologize again. We're trying to bridge that. But like I told him, it wasn't like that we were not in the school. I met the superintendent several times. We've been to school board meetings. We've done Native American programs within the schools. So we are present there, and to, you know, them just want to sweep it under the rug and just say, oh, it's just a mishap. But it's affecting our children there at, you know, at that high school, where now they're feeling like they're having to apologize to their peers for them not having an opportunity to make believe like they're Native American. That should never happen. We should not have students in a school system in this day and time thinks it's fair or it's okay to have basically, you know, Cowboy Indian Day. I mean, so what are we doing to educate, you know, and bridge the gap for our school systems as well as our teachers? Because a lot of, you know, teachers just coming in to North Carolina school, that they're unaware that we actually have Native American tribes that still exist, unfortunately, in this day and time. And like I said, I know with my school district, we work hard to try to, you know, educate them and bridge, and we're working more with our tribe support and our chief now to bridge that. But from some of the comments, it's happening in other communities and other schools across the state of North Carolina as well.
So thank you for the question. You're asking, what are we doing to ensure that this kind of behavior does not continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for speaking with the local superintendent and the local board. And it sounds like you approached the situation in a way that was in a way that would allow for that bridge to be built, and for there to be an apology, which was absolutely necessary on their part. And it sounds like you accepted their apology graciously. I think this goes back to a couple of things. There's two things you mentioned. There's what do the teachers know and what do the students know. So I can tell you that our history standards, which were adopted 2 years ago, and those standards are different than the curriculum, right? The curriculum decisions are made at the local level, but the state board votes on what our academic standards are, what students should know and be able to do. Those standards do require that students learn about the 8 different tribes that live in North Carolina that are represented. And so it is the law that students learn these things. Now, whether or not that happens at the local level, that's a local leadership issue, and I would certainly hope that you would all be vigilant, and when you notice that these things are happening, you have to speak up, just as you did. The other piece of this is that when our teachers and in particular our principals are in their education programs, when they're getting their degrees and getting their licenses, there are classes that our teachers are required to take on learning about diverse populations. And so we would hope that would give our teachers the knowledge that they need not to be ignorant of other cultures, as it sounds like folks were in this case. But one thing that we did uncover this past year, and I worked with Dr. Oxendine on this, is we learned that the coursework that our principals are undertaking when they become principals, when they are going to a college of education, the coursework varies greatly from institution to institution. And not all principals are taking diverse populations courses where they must learn about the different groups that live in North Carolina. And so we made some requests to changes from that in this session. The General Assembly is allowing the state board to dictate what those standard courses should be alongside the number of hours of internship that a principal should participate in. And we're going to work on getting consistency across those educator prep programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a question that kind of follows up on that. So every year we make these recommendations in our SACE book, and one of those is always supportive of mascots in North Carolina, and it's always the same schools. So I would like to see the state of North Carolina eliminate mascots as a whole. What is your position or any strategies that you and the State Board of Education, we all receive those emails every single year. Are there intentional conversation about getting rid of those American Indian mascots?
So I don't know that the state board has had conversations about getting rid of specific mascots, or in this case, Indian American mascots. The problem with taking action is that it is a local decision. And so what I would recommend is that I don't know if SACE has done this already, but going to local legislators, local school board, that is going, because these are individual schools that have the offensive mascots. And so it's going to be up to the local board of education to get rid of those mascots.
Yeah, so we have some states that have eliminated all Indian mascots in their state, but we are an advisory, and so every year, we have it in the SACE report, advisement to the State Board of Education. Sometimes these local districts doesn't listen, which leads kind of to the next question, in that we're making these recommendations. What is the agency's position or strategies in supporting SACE's recommendations each and every year? We certainly appreciate this year, we made a recommendation of the American Indian Director, and that was honored, and we certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much. But we also said, hey, we've made all these previous recommendations. One is the mascots, some is about data. So what is the agency's position on supporting our thoughts, ideas, and recommendations?
So as an individual, I can't speak for the State Board of Education, but as an individual, I support getting rid of offensive Indian American mascots. I think that what would need to happen if you wanted to get rid of all mascots, that would certainly take legislation, and you would need to find a champion in the legislature who would, I don't know if there's ever been a draft bill that would take such an action to get rid of all. As you mentioned, it sounds like there's precedent in other states to do this, and I would recommend getting that legislation and finding some champions in the House and the Senate to move that legislation forward in the short session.
Chair Lady Locklear, could I speak to this issue?
Absolutely, please proceed.
Yes, the state board, about, I don't know, let me just estimate a time, maybe 12 years ago, there was an aggressive campaign led by the State Board of Education. It goes back further than that, probably 15 years ago. State Board of Education and the SACE led a pretty aggressive campaign over a period of, I would say, 2 to 3 years, and very successfully over time began to, one at a time, district at a time, remove mascots and other offensive logo symbols. So the most recent and specific issue that I engaged myself in this one, and I will admit to everyone I was not successful, is over in Gaston County. Some of the SACE members, you may remember this. We were notified by letters from parents in the Gaston County area. I spoke with the superintendent at length. I did not hear from the principal, but I did speak with the superintendent, and used all the persuasion techniques I could muster at the time to cause him to understand why the mascot. I think the name of the mascot is I don't know, something Raiders.
The Red Raiders.
Yeah, Red Raiders.
I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. Oh, it does matter, but that my point, remembering it doesn't matter. I'm going to join the superintendent in this. I think the most effective means is to appeal to the General Assembly through a bill. And if you can find someone, it may be Mr. Lowry, Jared Lowry. It could be the legislator who championed the bill on honoring the Native culture in graduation ceremonies. I believe that may have been, if he didn't sponsor it, he was a co-sponsor, was Danny Britt. So now might be the season, since we succeeded in that regard with that piece of legislation, now might be the season to tap into the removal of mascots. I think that is probably the most efficient way to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Locklear and Superintendent Truitt. As a North Carolina native, I am ecstatic that we have in our Constitution, Section 13, that public education is provided to our students all across the state. I must say, I feel that public education is under attack in this state, and it's very scary to me, even though my youngest child is in 11th grade, so I will almost be done with the public school, at least K through 12. Now that we have a bill passed that we will be taking money from public schools and applying it to private schools and charters, how do you, as the superintendent, see your kind of place in education if we're basically in this state trying to get rid of public education and have everyone go to private or charter?
Well, I think the statement that we're trying to get people to leave public education and go to private schools is a matter of opinion. I don't agree with that statement. I think that, first of all, charter schools are public schools. And so I think what you're referring to is the large amount of money and the lift on the threshold for income for families to take advantage of vouchers or opportunity scholarships to attend a private school. So I want our public schools to be the schools of choice, but charter schools are part of that. They are public schools. Charter schools receive about 75% of the funding that a traditional neighborhood public school does, so they actually receive less funding. And I would say also that funding in North Carolina over the last 20 years has actually increased, and we give our most economically distressed public schools receive 33% more funding than those schools that are not economically distressed. And so because of the way we fund public schools in North Carolina, which is very different than states in the North, because the bulk of funding comes from the state instead of local property taxes, we have a much more equitable funding model. We fund schools based on the population of students. If you are a English language learner, you get more funding. If you are low income, you get more funding. If you have special needs, you get more funding. And so I think that there are certainly some specific things that I would like to see the legislature fund to make our public schools better that they have not yet funded. I would, for example, requested $100 million in this budget along with the State Board of Education to ensure that we can have at least one nurse in every single school so that schools don't have to share nurses. However, at the end of the day, the parent is the best person to decide what is right for their child. And historically, the idea of dollars going to parents so that they could decide how, to low-income parents, I should add, to decide how they want to spend education dollars or where they want to send their child to school. When wealthy people are not satisfied with their child's neighborhood school, they go to a private school, okay? When a wealthy family who has a child with special needs is not having their needs met at their neighborhood school, they go to a private school. Poor people don't have that option. And so the original intent of vouchers was to allow people without means to get out of their failing neighborhood public school. And I don't have to tell anybody at this table, we've got generational low-performing schools in pockets of our state. And so my problem with opportunity scholarships at this moment in time is that there is no accountability to the state for those public dollars. So I am told that it's coming. I have been very clear with the legislature that we must have, that any private school that takes state dollars must be accountable for those dollars through nationally normed standardized tests. So that's where I stand on that position. I'm always going to side with the parent, that the parent knows. No one cares about a child more than that child's parents. It is not the job of the public schools to raise our children. It is the job of parents to raise their children. And I think that there are things in this new budget. I've not had a chance to read it cover to cover yet. There are things in this new budget that I think are really good for public schools, but there are definitely some things lacking. And we look forward to moving on from this budget cycle, and we will fight another day in the short session to get those things that we did not get. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time today, Superintendent Truitt. Thank you
Chair
for
Locklear.
supporting the efforts of SACY. We appreciate you indeed.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome to continue to join us.
I have to go read the budget.
Thank you.
And I'm
so
going to get to work on that job description.
Yes,
So
thank you
you
so
all
much.
so much.
Let's give her a hand.
Next on our agenda is Representative Jerry Lowry. He could not be with us today due to a family emergency. He did send a few updates for me to share on his behalf. Of course, as Superintendent Truitt mentioned, we have the Director of American Indian Education Services position, so that's one of the highlights. $20 million was also allocated for UNCP to create 5 new health science courses, including the state's first and only school of optometry. And then, of course, we have our new American Indian graduation implementation in which our American Indian students can display their culture. So Representative Lowry was very crucial in supporting those efforts and supporting us along with Mr. Greg Richardson and Dr. Olivia Oxenine. So we certainly thank him, thank all of them for their efforts and support in each of these legislative initiatives. Are there any other legislation updates that anyone would like to share? Dr. Oxenine or Mr. Richardson?
I'll yield to Dr. Oxendine first.
I will, the one that I wanted to mention, and I'd planned to include it in my brief comments. I can wait until my comments.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So that puts us back on our agenda time. Awesome. So actually, Dr. Oxendine, you are up next. Thank you for joining.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect timing. Again, I want to take just a minute and thank the new members who were sworn in this morning. Thank you for being willing to serve and be part. I consider SACE the premier organization or body of collaborators who speak on behalf strongly and very assertively speak on behalf of our American Indian students in North Carolina. So you are now part of a very important body of thinkers and doers. The State Board of Education certainly values your input. So I just want to congratulate you and also to emphasize to you that you certainly have my support as long as I'm a member of the State Board of Education. And you will, through my efforts, you will have the support of the full State Board of Education. And those of you who have retired or you have terminated off SACE, can't thank you enough for the hard work and the good thinking and the advocacy that you have provided during your tenure serving on the State Board of Education. And with that, the one update, legislative update, and I'm not even going to call it an update. I'm just going to call it a mere mention. And my suggestion, Chair Lady, is that at some point, perhaps we could add to the agenda someone to come before SACE and talk about Senate Bill 59, Session Law 2023. This is the piece of legislation that is now will become a general statute, the Parents' Bill of Rights. So we definitely need, SACE definitely needs maybe about an hour presentation, perhaps someone from the agency, one of our lawyers from the State Board of Education, DPI, could come before SACE and do a summary of that law because it is so critical to all parents, but specifically we want our American Indian parents to be extremely smart and knowledgeable and very literate. I don't mean that in terms of being able to read, very knowledgeable about the ins and outs of this bill because it's massive, it is consequential, and it really opens the door to parents to play a role and have a voice. So that's my recommendation on Senate Bill 49, which is the Parents' Bill of Rights. Of course, we're so happy that we have, I'm on 30 seconds is all I need, just to reiterate the fact that after many years, we do now have a position that's going to be part of DPI. You heard Superintendent Truitt say that it will probably be housed in the area of academics, in the area of our standards and academics. That's a good position for it. Because we stay concerned about the achievement of our students. So having a strong person, American Indian, who's knowledgeable of standards and achievement and student achievement and testing and assessment and all that goes along with that, it's massive. It's a massive body of knowledge to know. Housed in that arena is going to be important. And I'll do my part, and I know Chair Lady Locklear and Dr. Silver will do their parts to make sure we're kept abreast on that position, from the job description to the formal announcement of the position to the interviewing of the position. It may take several months. You heard Superintendent Truitt say state government doesn't move fast, but the key to it is making sure that we keep the momentum behind it, and then we'll see some action, maybe, who knows, maybe by the second half of the year or sooner. Bottom line is we'll stay on top of it. Good news, this is a little bit of new news for me. I wasn't aware of this until about 2 weeks ago. Something that you can make note of and and if you ever need to go further with it, especially if you're a K-12 educator, then this is going to be important to you. I learned recently that North Carolina, the Department of Public Instruction, through funds provided by the General Assembly, is making available one general liability insurance for every educator, K-12 educator, or I should say personnel in North Carolina. That includes teachers, it includes custodians, it includes definitely principals, assistant principals, cafeteria workers. Anyone who is paid from a K-12 payroll is eligible for a hefty amount of liability insurance if that employee ever finds himself or herself sued. I believe the coverage is, and I'm about 90% sure of this, the coverage is up to $1 million of coverage. And it also includes, I don't know the ins and outs of attorney fees, but I think there is a small provision. The last time DPI negotiated with Great America, I think is the provider, the last negotiation with that provider did extend and pay for attorney fees. So the person, hopefully no one who is a K-12 person around the table on SACE will need it, but it's there. And if ever you needed to access that insurance policy or utilize that insurance policy, I should say, the best person in your district office would be your HR director, the director of human resources. I wouldn't go to the superintendent. I mean, you certainly could go to the person could go to the superintendent, but with questions. But the superintendent is going to direct you to the HR office. So that's where that office would have all the procedures and policies and processes for explaining the policy and getting someone who would need to access that policy going. So that really takes care of my update, Chair Lady Locklear, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Dr. Otzenine. Are there any questions for Dr. Otzenine? All right, thank you, Dr. Otzenine.
Thank you very much. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have Mr. Greg Richardson, who will be bringing us updates on behalf of the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs. Welcome, Mr. Richardson. Thank you for always supporting the efforts of SACE.
Thank you, Dr. Locklear. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you today. And sitting back and listening to the conversations today, I've pretty much revised my presentation altogether because you all have touched on some issues today that I think is very vital to the conversation today and very vital to the work both of SACE and the Commission of Indian Affairs. Now, you've talked about the issue just previously about the mascots. We've heard about the issue in my tribal community in Warren County, the kind of things that our school systems are facing. You know, the SACE, as an organization, being that you are statutory in an entity and that you are advisory, is very powerful. And I want you to think about that for a brief moment, because you're basically the boots on the ground in our state as far as Indian education and Indian issues, the student issues, the school issues. And those of us who are in leadership roles across the state, whether it be at the tribal level or commission level, wherever, we're looking to you all for guidance in terms of what are some of those key issues that we need to look at and address. So advisory is just that. You can advise us on what you think should be doing, we should be doing at the Indian Commission as it relates to the education issues in our state. Yes, the mascot issue we have been wrestling with for many, many years, as Dr. Oxendine referenced earlier. And I want to bring you back to a little bit of historic knowledge on the mascot issue, going back to work of the Indian Commission, which I know is over 20 years ago. So the commission adopted an action item on that, presented it to the State Board of Education, and the State Board of Education sent out an advisory to all of our systems in our state, encouraging them to eliminate American Indian mascots. So this issue has been going on, and we received quite a bit of pushback, or we didn't, but I think DPI did, and I think some superintendents did, because you've got some systems that are very married or engaged to their mascots. They don't want anybody messing with their mascots. I've had some pretty interesting emails and conversations to come my way at the Indian Commission about that. Now, the one that was mentioned earlier out in Gaston County is one of those. Not 20 years ago. That's going on now. And our students are having to face that kind of issue today. And so just a week ago, Friday, we had this on our agenda at the commission meeting at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. We had some presenters that were going to come in and talk about that, but unfortunately there was some things that happened in their schedule and they couldn't be there. But they're planning to be on our agenda in December. So we have some parents and we have some Indian leaders in Charlotte and the Mecklenburg-Gaston County area. They're very upset about what's going on out there. But here's where we are, folks, and the superintendent nailed it. It is a local decision in terms of how school systems are ran. Those school systems are managed basically, and policies are driven basically at that local level by the superintendent, the Board of Education. And so you have a situation where local folk kind of look down their noses at the state coming in telling them what to do. So we have to go into the situation realizing that and understanding that there's different levels in this that we've got to deal with. So we have to deal with this from a local level. And so how do we deal with that? First of all, we try to deal with it in terms of talking it through the way we do, being a diplomat, talking with folks and telling them just how sensitive this issue is and that our American Indians are not mascots, but they're very proud of their long-standing mascots and they don't want to change those things. So here's where we are in my view. We're going to have to continue to work on this issue. We're going to have to continue to put focus on the issue and keep it on the radar screen. So we're moving towards now the short session in the next General Assembly. In a short session, you can't really do a lot of things that you do in a long session. The short session is more or less about budget adjustments and those kind of things. But as we know, things can get to be attached to a budget. So my question to SACY at this point, do you have a forward-driven legislative agenda? If we're looking at 24, looking at 25 coming up, 25 is going to be the next long session. What are those items? What would be our wish list for education in North Carolina moving forward? What do we want to put on that list? So I would ask you, if you would, to think about that, Chair, and have some more discussions like you had today about what those issues are, what are those things to be placed on that agenda. Now, moving back over to the commission side, Indian Commission. We have a forward-driven legislative process which starts in January of each year. So moving through the year, items go on that list. The commission members bring items to the table and they go on our list. Then the full commission votes on those at our December meeting, previous to the legislature coming back to town in January or February. So our strategy is to go forward with a legislative agenda in hand. So once we've agreed on that legislative agenda, the next item is deciding who in the General Assembly would carry that water for us. And right now, the key person is Representative Jarrett Lowry. And so that's not to say that there's not others. And I think there's a good strategy in terms of thinking about who are the other friends out there that can be a co-sponsor of the bill so that when the bill goes through, you have multiple co-sponsors. Ideally, what I think would be great would be to have co-sponsors from all over the state, in particular those states where, or counties rather, where we have American Indian students, a large number of students in schools. I know we can get good support from Robertson County. We have a very engaged community there. American Indians very engaged in the political process. And I believe for that region, you can make things happen. But it can, I think, be stronger if we have things being happening all over the state in terms of supporting legislative agendas. So I wanted to say a thank you to all of you for your dedication and support of SACE in terms of taking your time to volunteer, to come to Raleigh, to come here and sit at the table and discuss these issues. That's very commendable. I want to thank the outgoing members, and I want to especially thank the new members who were sworn in today for your commitment to this work and moving forward. I'm going to break here because I know time is of essence. I'm totally moving away from my standard presentation, but I think hearing the things that we talked about today causes me to want to leave this meeting today with information in terms of what do we leave here after this presentation is going to be of value to you as educational leaders, and also what can I take away to take back to the commission. And so I've already made a page of notes here already about things that I'm going to talk with our commission about. Now, Miss Dorothy over here, Dorothy Yates, she sits on our commission. She chairs the education committee, and I saw her over here writing too. So I'm very, very sure that when we get to the point of our next education committee, she's going to be ramped up and ready to make some recommendations to her committee. And there again, we're moving forward to December to have our legislative agenda in place. I do think it would be great. And, you know, we are state employees, or I am. So we cannot lobby. I cannot go over to the General Assembly. Only the people who are in positions to lobby or in state government are allowed to go to the General Assembly. People like our Secretary Pam Cashwell, our legislative liaison in DOA. But, you know, our legislative liaison has to have the information in hand. So we have to tell them what we want. What is our wish list? So we can do that. We can get things on that list. So perhaps moving into 2024, Ms. Dorothy, maybe we ought to think about a bill asking for the abolishment of all American Indian mascots in the state of North Carolina. And I think we would get support for that, but you got to know we're going to get some pushback as well. The other thing I wanted to do today, I have some staff here, Maria Richardson over here, and Ashley Patrick back here. Maria is director of our workforce program. And because you're teachers and educators, and you are interacting with students every day, and families with students in school, I wanted her to step forward and talk a little bit about our workforce development program and the advantage to passing that information on to the parents, the students, and our school leaders, because this is a way that we can get some of our expenses for students who have graduated, going on to community college. We have some resources for that. So, Chair Locklear, if it's okay, I'd like to bring Maria Richardson forward at this point.
Absolutely. Please
Maria?
proceed. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to say thank you, Greg, for allowing me to speak, as well as thank you, Chairwoman. I'm so grateful to be in my position right now. I am in my first full year of WIOA, and as many of you know, WIOA has been around for a very long time, and what it stands for is Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So we're actually funded by the Department of Labor, and what we do, for the most part, we have so many different students. We have different processes. We have work experience, on-the-job training. Those are 3 categories that we work under, and currently we have $365,000 in our budget that we assist students in community colleges. So with all of you being in education, especially those who are in that 12th grade space, you may have students who are not necessarily ready to go to a four-year university, but with our program with community colleges or trade schools, we offer financial assistance, incentives, graduation incentives, as well as work experience. And sometimes with our work experience, what that entails is putting participants in different areas where maybe there's not a position readily available for them. It could be at a tribal office, it could be at any job. And what we do is we pay for them to have that training and get the experience to actually do that job. I've had many people in our work experience program that started out within the commission as a work experience, and now they're permanently employed with the state. When it comes to our on-the-job training, that is a program that we would pay 50% of the wages for someone at a job who is willing to consider someone if by chance they don't have that work experience. Also, with the incentives that I talked about, we have a $250 a month stipend that we give to our participants for going to school full-time in our community colleges. So it's just to say, hey, you're doing a good job, you're on track, we want to make sure that you can pay to get to and from school. We also, depending on the funds at the time when people graduate, we also give them an incentive just to say, congratulations, you succeeded in your program. So WIOA is a terrific program for, like I said, anyone who you may have, and please pass this information along. And if you don't know exactly who to contact, if you go to the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs, our website, you can find all of the information there. We have 3 different program coordinators at this moment. Like Greg said, Ashley Patrick, she is in our Waccamaw Siouan tribal community. Some of you may know Miss Wanda Ammons, she's in the Coharie tribal community. And we also have Satara Lewis, who is in the Hallowasaponi tribal community at this moment. We do, however, service all of 59 counties in North Carolina, so we are able to take on anyone who is tribally enrolled. You do have to have tribal enrollment to be qualified for our program. Also, you have to either meet the income guidelines of 70% of the poverty level, and currently the poverty level income for North Carolina for 2023 is $14,000, a little over $14,000. So we have a couple of different eligibility processes that may qualify someone for that program. We also have had students as of recent in welding, dental hygiene, medical assisting, phlebotomy, and we see these young people, and sometimes I think our oldest student at the moment is 60, so it's 18 and older. So if you have someone and they say, I wish I could go back to school, but I don't have the funding for it, if they are eligible and they're in our tribal communities, we want to do everything we can to support them. And so that's what our whole program is about. That's what we want. We want not only what you all at SACE continue to do for our K through 12, but to just make sure that when they graduate, if they're not ready in that very moment to go to school, maybe they can do a 2-year program or a trade program. Like I said, CDL, so many different things that you could go into. But that is the WIOA program, but we also do have at the Commission of Indian Affairs the SONS program, which will help your 12th graders going into college, which is headed up by Ms. Kimberly Hammonds. And what that is for students that are going to be enrolled into a university. So we have so many beautiful programs at the Commission of Indian Affairs, and my name is Maria Richardson. My email is maria.richardson@doa.gov, at nc.gov, And you can see me afterwards if you have any questions. And like I said, just please reference the website for the commission if you have any further questions about our program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just have one question because I was here Googling. I was looking, is there like an application for the stipends and services? Maybe I just haven't found it yet.
Yes.
Is it on the website?
Our application is not on the website. You would just contact one of Wanda, Ashley, Maria, or Satina.
All right. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Thank you for
course.
your contributions to the Commission of
Thank
Indian
you.
Affairs.
Chair Lady Locklear, I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is such good information that we just heard. I'm wondering, what is the best way school counselors can learn about this opportunity? Is somebody?
The best way would be for them to contact me directly, and my information is on the commission website. So if it's a student in an area that you don't necessarily see, if it's not one of the tribal communities that have a field office, you can actually just contact me and I'll get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, but how would a counselor even know to contact you?
Well, actually, it's through these moments like this. We do a lot of different activities, events, in networking in our communities, as well as we have, like I said, on the website, we have those things, but it's just about word of mouth when it comes to the counselors. For the high schools, we could do more reaching out to the counselors. I actually will take that on as a project. Right now, it's been predominantly in the community colleges, but yes, we could, catapult it forward and make sure that we reach out to all of the counselors at the high schools.
Yeah, I think maybe if you could get, I'm thinking like brochures to counselors, or if you ever have gatherings, powwows would be a great way, actually.
Oh, absolutely. We were at Cohere. We've actually been present at every powwow.
Yeah, because this is such good, this is just such a good opportunity, and anytime Indian students can add a little bit of money to their coffers to get through school, they just need to know about those avenues.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, we in Cumberland County, I'm gonna give a shout out to Kim Hammond. We in Cumberland County have taken advantage of the SUN program, and we put it out to our school counselors. Candace and our counselor in Cumberland County Indian Education, we meet with counselors once a month. We put that program out, and Kim has just been a blessing to us. We've taken advantage of that. A lot of our students have gotten that grant, that scholarship. We appreciate that.
I have just a few items to wrap up. Yes, please take advantage of that information. Please share that information. Staff is out at powwows. They'll be in Charlotte this weekend at Metrolinus powwow. We were at Guilford Native last weekend, so we use those techniques to meet with people, to network in the communities, and also it's very important for us to get this information out there because it saves the parents money. It provides an avenue through which a student can get an education, so we want to continue that. Wanted to mention too about another grant, which is our tobacco survey program. And that's brand new. It's a program funded through Health and Human Services, and it's actually funded from CDC. And the core mission of that program is to conduct some surveys in Indian communities to determine the impact of smoking, tobacco use on our people. So this is a 2-year program, and we have a staff that we're ramping up right now. It's a brand new program to implement that program, and Ms. Chavis on our staff. Go to our website, go to the tobacco survey program, and pick that information up. It's very important. Another thing I want to mention that as of this week, the 2020 American Indian census data is supposed to be coming out. So be looking for that. U.S. Census Bureau has announced that they will release that information this week. We're going to be monitoring that. We're going to get that information out to everyone as soon as it comes in. Now, why that's important? Because now we can look at where we are in terms of demographic data from the Census Bureau. So look for that. The legislative items that I have for you is that we are slated to receive a new position at the commission, and it's a grant manager position. And we're in the same situation that the superintendent talked about earlier. We're waiting for the legislation, the budget to be signed off on, but that's just one of the steps in the process. The budget has to be certified after that. So there will be weeks now before you get a certified budget and you can put your hands on that money and start hiring. So it's not going to be automatic. So just wanted to mention some of those things in closing. Again, I'm just so honored to be before this body, have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing at the Commission of Indian Affairs, and hopefully you'll invite me back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
if I could add to the commission report, I have a report from the Triangle Community Foundation on the North Carolina American Indian Fund Scholarship Report for 2023. And I would like permission to pass this out to our SACY members during lunch so they can see this. And I want to put a plug in for this Indian Fund Scholarship Program. It is funded by the American Indian license plates in North Carolina. So if you would please advocate to your communities for our people to purchase these American Indian license plates, and then the funds go to this scholarship program. We have found it has been a drop in the contributions to this fund. We know that finances have been tight in a lot of communities and areas, and people are choosing not to renew their American Indian license plates. So therefore, the amount of money has decreased. And that means that the amount of scholarships that we can give decreases because of the lack of funds. But it's some interesting statistics on this paper to see how many of our tribes we reach out to through this scholarship. And 25% of our 2023 recipients were the first in their family to attend college. So that's great that we are increasing that number. And I'll distribute these during our lunchtime to save time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to Mr. Greg Richardson and Ms. Dorothy and all the stakeholders of the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs. We certainly appreciate your partnership and advocacy for SACY. So thank you so much.
Chairwoman Locklear, do you mind
Yes.
if I add something real quick too?
Please proceed.
Maria and Mr. Gregg, thank you so much for the updates. I know, Maria, a number of our students have benefited from WIOA programs, so thank you for the work you and your team are doing. But to continue the conversation around mascots, I did want to offer as a resource that Guilford County Schools passed a policy back in June 2022 that no school, team, organization, club, activity, or event can use any sort of racial identifier, mascot, nickname that uses race or culture in any way. So in case that's a resource, this was passed in June. I'm happy to share that with you or however I need to, but wanted people to have that as a resource in case they're trying to push that at their school level. So thank you for letting me share.
It was a district policy.
It's a district policy, yes ma'am.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we have a presentation on the portrait of a graduate, which has become a central part of North Carolina education. I welcome Ms. Christy Altkin. She joins us as the Special Advisor for Workforce Engagement. She'll be offering an informational presentation. Welcome, Ms. Altman.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
That's wonderful. Thank you for inviting me to come speak today to this esteemed board. Madam Chairwoman, this is a privilege, truly, to be here and to be speaking to you today about the North Carolina Portrait of a Graduate. So actually, everything that Maria was talking about related to workforce engagement and the preparation that's required, the programs and resources that are out there. I will also say, as a special advisor to Superintendent Truitt, that one of my takeaways from this meeting already is to make sure that I plug Maria into a variety of different resources and networks that can help extend the work of the commission and the connectivity of Indian Americans in North Carolina to workforce opportunities. So I'm delighted to be here to connect that work to the Portrait of a Graduate. Who's rolling the slides here? All right, so let's see. Am I doing this all right? Perfect. All right. So the North Carolina Portrait of a Graduate was launched in October of 2022. Raise your hand if you've heard anything about it. You have. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, so the portrait was launched in 2022, and it was a culmination of a 9-month process where we engaged stakeholders throughout the state. So in every educational region, we reached out inside of the educational sector, so thinking about teachers, administrators, students, parents, and then we also reached out to community stakeholders, so thinking about employers, chambers of commerce, workforce development boards, social services agencies, you name it, we reached out to them and we invited them, higher education, we invited them to be part of this process to help us really define what it means to be a graduate in North Carolina. And so this work was largely orchestrated through COVID, so there was lots of virtual meetings, but because of that, I guess the silver lining is that we were able to engage stakeholders throughout the state, more than 1,200 in virtual meetings. And at the end of the stakeholder engagement process, we identified 7 durable skills, right? So durable skills can be interchanged with soft skills or employability skills. You've probably heard those words before. But honestly, we don't believe that there's anything soft about these skills, right? And that they're not optional. This is not the nice to have. And so we came up with these 7 durable skills. I'm going to be talking about them in depth in just a moment. But the idea really is to start thinking about how we can combine academic rigor with the durable skills, things like communication, critical thinking, collaboration, adaptability. How do we incorporate that into our learning environments, into all of our schools? So this idea of deeper learning, right, and something that's more engaging, more interactive with students became really a passion point for us here at the agency and throughout the state of North Carolina. We just hear a lot and see a lot of head nodding, like, oh my gosh, yes, why are we missing this, right? And right now, we have a significant focus on test taking, and our schools are graded on 2 tests by 2 teachers. Yeah, it just is. It's a system that was particularly kind of shot some holes through in this accountability model through COVID, where high-performing schools all of a sudden were not high-performing because of these, the test taking, right? And so what we're suggesting is that durable skills like collaboration, communication, these can be woven into an accountability system that creates something that's more balanced, right? That's multi-indicator and really helps us understand what really matters, both to employers and to the students and the families and the parents writ large. Next slide. Oh, I'm doing it. Go ahead and pop it to the next slide. All right, so RY. So, and what we have found too is that linking the durable skills that you see kind of listed at the bottom is truly that creating this idea around these, the language vocabulary around the durable skills and linking it to workforce readiness is just a winner, right? We need our students to be able to show up to work on time. our students to come in and to be able to absorb feedback, to grow, and then not to quit, right? We need our students to be collaborative. We need them to be able to communicate with their colleagues, with their direct reports, with their bosses, and like it's what we need to do. Yet we don't spend any time in our classrooms on these skills right now. And we're finding too that in a lot of our home environments that these skills also are not necessarily being nurtured to the extent that we would like to see them. So we can create an environment starting in kindergarten to start to develop these skills that really matter to our communities and to our employers. All right, so we are really focused on this idea because employers seek durable skills 4 times as much as they do the technical skills. So thinking a technical skill would be maybe a credential in Excel, for example, or a credential in welding. Those are all great, so I'm not saying let's not do that. But what I'm suggesting to you is that the student that has the technical skill married with the durable skill is the employee that the employer wants to bring into their business, right? So it's a more expansive way to think about skills, technical and durable. And what we also found out through doing our research and collaborating with the North Carolina Department of Commerce is that 2 of 5 of the reasons that employers have difficulty hiring entry-level employees is because they don't have these durable skills. 2 of the top 5, right? That's a big deal. And at a time when we have 0.9 job applicants for every job in North Carolina, 0.9, like our employers are really suffering. And they're looking for this kind of talent, and if they find it, they will hire them. So, so add on that the fact that North Carolina continues to grow. We added about $29 billion of new investment in economic development over the last year alone. So we've got these great jobs that are coming to our state, but the number one concern of employers that are looking to expand in North Carolina, guess what it is? Okay, I'll tell you. Number 1 is workforce. Guess what number 2 is? Workforce. Guess what number 3 is? Workforce. Yes. Yeah, like Chris Chung, he's like the lead sales guy for North Carolina to bring in new businesses. That's what he tells us. He says that is the absolute prevailing difficulty and challenge to every state. And so imagine if we have students that are ready, employees that are ready with these durable skills, what a competitive advantage we have against any other location where these companies might want to go. So there's a lot of value in developing these kind of skills. And thinking too about like just even the pace of change, right? So we've got AI that's coming. It's not coming in, it's coming in. Which one of y'all have gone into ChatGPT already and started tinkering with it? Good on you. So we've got 2. I highly recommend, like, at lunch today, just throw it open and ask the darn thing a question. Like, I could ask it, tell me how to integrate Indian Americans in North Carolina into the durable skills network in the state. And it would be like, and it will just kind of spit out an answer. Not that it is always 100% right, because we know that that is not true, right? So, but being able to use discernment, to edit, to ask questions, to ask the right question of the tool itself. Like, so all this to say, if our students are not adaptable, if they're not applying critical thinking in this next wave, this next iteration of our economy, of what's coming next, if they aren't able to roll with the pace of change, they're simply going to get sucked up by the tsunami, right? So these are the skills. These durable skills are the ones that are going to last these students a lifetime. It might take over like even professions that that make really good wages. Think about like statisticians. You can just put that right into the ChatGPT. Think about paralegals. All of that case law right in ChatGPT. Right, so it's going to accelerate our ability to process large amounts of data, but it's also going to affect the jobs of the future. Combine that with like the silver tsunami, right? A lot of us might be older, including myself, right? I don't want to be working when I'm 70, right? So if we start thinking about the number of people that are going to exit the workforce simply by age, and the fact that we are having fewer children, and that our young men are launching later than they have at any point in our history, we've got a situation where we don't have the workforce that's going to be prepared and be ready for the jobs, even as we are predicting them right now, right? So we've got to really start thinking about what really matters in our educational environments, and we would argue that durable skills is one of those things. All right, so going back to this idea, we partnered with America Succeeds. We looked at over 3 million job postings in the state of North Carolina, right? Because we want this to be very data-based. And guess how many of those 3 million job postings asked for an ACT score? That number is 0. Guess how many even asked for your end of grade score in biology in 10th grade? Another goose egg. Now, there could be, like, if you think about life sciences, there are careers where that does matter, right? So I'm not suggesting that we don't teach biology, right? But I am suggesting that we are focusing on the wrong things, right? And so if employers say that they care, so 77% of those job postings had at least one durable skill, like communication, critical thinking, collaboration, etc. That's what employers care about, yet what we do in our schools is teach all of these things. Again, not saying let's throttle back on academic rigor, but let's not forget about what really matters when these students cross our graduation stage. All right, so I already kind of recapped this. 1,200 volunteers aligned in these teams. We looked at it through these lenses, including workforce, including pace of change, including even just like environmental connectivity and global trends. It was a very cool, powerful experience, and we would invite you as we continue this work to join in. All right, so here's the portrait. You might see, you may have noticed this fuller banner behind you over there. So that shows the durable skills. This is something that was recently endorsed by the State Board of Education. We are talking with districts across the state about this and what implementation could look like, integration into strategic plans, potentially even adopting the model. So your neighbors over in Winston-Salem have gone as far as adopting the statewide portrait of a graduate as a guiding document, so that their Board of Education at the local level has endorsed and adopted the statewide portrait. And they are really moving very carefully and methodically towards this idea, this pedagogy around deeper learning, which will include these durable skills in all lesson plans. So this is not just in the realm of CTE, this is not just in the realm of academics, it is in every realm. All right, so we also created these in Spanish. I'm not sure how many of our native populations speak Spanish. They probably, some do. So we want to be as inclusive as possible. If we're missing something, please let us know. And then here's the competency set. So adaptability, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, empathy, right? Who does not need a little more empathy these days? And especially in our workplaces, in our homes. Learner's mindset, this idea of learning, relearning, and being excited about learning, right? And not being like, oh, I just learned that. I'm gonna learn another thing. Right, so even just like an attitude that embraces learning is important to us. And then of course, personal responsibility. Like, how many times have you heard an employer say, I just need somebody who can pass a drug test and show up to work? Like, we hear this all the time, right? Or to, I had a candidate, they didn't even show up for the interview. Like, what on earth? So personal responsibility is built into this model too. And this is not something that we at DPI came up with. This is really something that the state of North Carolina, through our conversations, they told us what they believed in most. And then we went through a variety of editing, because we literally culled this down from 50 down to 7 that you see here. So we had to do some mashing, for example, problem problem solving and critical thinking. We had to kind of pull those two together. Personal responsibility, fiscal responsibility, we had to pull some things together. And so we sent it back to the design teams and said, does this, did we nail it? And if we don't, then we're gonna take it back and we're gonna keep working it until it really feels like what you are telling us. All right, so we have created, and these are all available on the DPI website, and we'll make sure that that the staff has this, and you all can have access to all of these slides and to these links. But we've created a variety of resources: the portrait, an FAQ, the website, and then just recently in August, we created very strong rubrics, I-CAN statements, because this is another thing: is our students do not see themselves as critical thinkers. They don't have this vocabulary yet. Our students cannot say, I am responsible. And they are not putting this like in their cover letters. Am I right, Maria? Right? And so we can help them just even self-identify with these I can statements. And then we've also created a suggestions for use document. And in that, well, hold on, I'll go back. So in the suggestions for use, there's guidance. So you could use this in schools that are, just whatever schools you all are part of, you can use these rubrics. These are open to anybody who wants them. So in the suggestions for use document, you'll find additional resources around special populations, exceptional children. You'll also find tips for teachers, and you'll find also tips for administrators and for districts. All right, so digging a little bit into the rubrics themselves, there's all sorts of information and guidance around planning and feedback, vocabulary, design of experiences, and self-assessment. Again, getting back to that student that can say, I am not only a great communicator, I know how to collaborate, and I'm going to show up to work on time every day. Like, I think that there are employers that cry for happy if they got that kind of cover letter from a student. All right, so we've created the rubrics around performance levels, and then the criteria. We engage more than 120 teachers throughout the state to help us do this, because again, we are listening. We are not we're not cramming down, but this is really very much a bottom up. And so everything is around this pedagogy, approaching, meeting, and exceeding expectations for K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. So these are all, again, public resources that are available to all of you. So we've created those rubrics and tools. We're not done yet. Right, so we're going to create performance tasks and performance assessments. And then we're going to go on to create a learning library, an online tool and resource with videos and all sorts of other resources so that teachers, administrators, whoever wants to make themselves available of this can take these resources and make them their own. And then they've got this fidelity around very, very high work. All right, so here's what it could look like. So I might include in my rubric, so thinking about as a teacher, I might include these things: adaptability, collaboration, personal responsibility. And then it's going to feature this way. So we've got these T-charts also, so teachers, all these resources to help really start making that jump from just a simply academic exercise to one that also incorporates the durable skills. Suggestions for use, the teacher tips, the school leaders tips. And then we did a couple of district spotlights. One is Winston-Salem, because they've really leaned into this work. And again, this is not easy work. It's not fast work, right? So it really takes a shifting mindset, right? And so I've included this here as well. This work doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. We want to leave space for that. But they're incorporating things like teacher surveys and teacher work groups, professional development, student surveys, engaging with parents and stakeholders in their local communities. And these are all things that you all can do also. And then in Morrisville Graded School District, they're taking the portrait and they've included it into their strategic plan. So if you have a strategic planning process, that's another way to approach this. And what the next steps for them are going to be things also like the student surveys. All right, so school performance grades. So we treasure what we measure. Do you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Right? And so if the only thing we're measuring is test scores, where would something like this fit? Right? Because I don't blame our teachers. I do not blame our principals. Of course they're going to focus on these things that play into these letter grades. My school's an A, my school's a B. And so we are looking at totally redefining school performance grades so that it's not just focused on this proficiency in academics or growth towards that proficiency in academics, but one that is more holistic, that's multi-indicator, that will include maybe like a 5-year graduation rate cohort versus just the 4-year, right? Because sometimes it takes kiddos a little longer. Life happens. So we want to maybe add that as an indicator. Chronic absenteeism. We believe passionately that students need to be in school, right? And that they need to be in their classrooms to truly benefit. Also includes things like post-secondary preparation. Or are you, this idea around post-secondary outcomes, are you enlisted, employed, or enrolled in higher ed? And we're going to start tracking these things. We're going to look at school climate. Do teachers like to work there? Do students like to go to school there? Is it clean, right? And so we can start to think about what do we care about as measures of school performance, and not necessarily just limit it to those moments in time when students are taking a test, but really think expansively about what we care about. So we're working on this now. I need to put a great big asterisk on this because it's not us that decides this. The General Assembly is the one that really has the control and the power over accountability. However, we're going to make very strong recommendations to them. And our hope is that they will see the value of these recommendations. We've had a lot of dialogue with members of the General Assembly to make sure that they understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what it could solve for, and how it's going to improve the system. And not necessarily, again, this is not like let's throttle back and let's water down standards and academic rigor and accountability. It's not that at all. What we're saying is let's look at the whole picture and let's give schools credit for the amazing work that they do with students every day, right? So as we think about the durable skills and where they fit into this new system, this potential new system, we see these durable skills embedded in the post-secondary preparation. So that starts in kindergarten, goes to middle school and into high school, and that we could potentially start adding this to the student information system. We could create badges around this, and as the teacher does assessments, or the counselor, or the media specialist, whoever's working with students on this, as they're testing and not, I hate the word testing, as they're kind of measuring and monitoring progress towards exceeding expectations and helping these kiddos make their way, that they can earn a badge, and that matters to these kids, right? And that could be included in their digital transcript and in their career development plan, which was just recently added to the budget, by the way. Every student in North Carolina will be required to have a career development plan that will start to map these things out, and that will ultimately create a portfolio. So when the student graduates from high school, that they can show not only their transcript, but they could take their portfolio to an employer that's going to say, not only that, I've earned these credentials, I've also earned these badges in these durable skills that really matter to you, right? So we're starting to think much more expansively about that digital transcript, what our students are going to take away, and it's pretty exciting work. But the durable skills, not ready for prime time yet. We are not going to even start measuring for it because we just haven't, our teachers haven't had enough time to really put this into the classroom. So we're looking at like a 3 to 5 year slow roll and integrating it over time into the school performance grades. All right, AIM conference is coming up. I hope you all have already signed up. This is all about Portrait of a Graduate. So if you want to learn more, you want to dig in, you want to bring your teachers, it's free to your instructors, so please come. It's here in Raleigh. We're going to go into these rubrics. We're going to even design a portrait of a leader. So thinking about your infrastructure and your leaders in the commission, come, right? Because I think you would really enjoy this idea around how do we workshop, like what does it mean to be somebody who leads and demonstrates these durable skills also. So really excited about that. And that's it. Who has some questions for me?
I do.
Yes.
Hey. So thank you for that. that really, as an administrator that's currently dealing with this work, that's very inspiring to hear that that's the conversation. And the reason that I say that is because a lot of people are unaware that these school performance grades affect a lot of different components of that school building or that system.
100%.
For example, teachers can be replaced. It talks about how much money can be allotted to your school and your district. So these are serious conversations. So
Yes.
being an administrator, and this is my second year in this work, I've always been a person that says, well, you have to be multifaceted, or you have to have a holistic approach. But you almost become aware, understand how an administrator can become hyper-focused on that, because without that performance grade, nothing else is looked at. So, I mean, it makes it, I'm just going to say I'm very happy. So that's the point I'm trying to make. But the next thing is, I was going to ask, like, what type of qualitative or quantitative measures are going to assess if those things are working in a school building? And you answered that a little bit with the rubric, but is that something that language, can it be married to our NESIS instrument so that we can actually have that language in the instrument to evaluate our teachers? Or what would that look like in terms of us collecting data to see if that's effective in our buildings?
That's exactly, yes. So yes and yes. So the
Okay.
idea is for us to start to integrate this into the systems as we currently use them, right? And so thinking about the SIS, for example, so that we can, the teacher can measure student progress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is going to be somewhat subjective, right? So a lot of our work, though, like social studies is subjective in many ways. So it really is going to, we're going to trust our teachers. They're incredible experts in their classrooms. We don't need to micromanage them. We trust them to take the rubrics, to understand how to implement them. But it is on us, though, to make sure that they've got all the tools they need. But yes, to include it. And so you as an administrator or a principal of a building, that you should be able to incorporate this too into your teacher review processes. And like, how are your students doing in developing these durable skills? Where are their gaps? And how can we help you, teacher, become more effective? Like, what additional tools and resources do you need? And then to reach back out to us so that we're feeding and nurturing that system as we stand it up over the next probably closer to 5 years, actually.
So there would be flexibility then, building by building, about
Yes.
the processes, or utilizing that SIT team to make those decisions about how to measure it.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be like the state saying, use this instrument to evaluate those indicators or those soft skills.
Not at this point.
Okay.
What we want to do is create the assessments for you and for your teachers so that they can use them in their classrooms, so that we do have the standard around the rubrics.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to tie them also to the standard course of study. Right, so we'll provide resources in all four of the kind of main academic verticals, if you will, so math, science, social studies, and ELA. So they're all going to be anchored to the standard course of study and to our standards in the state. So that will help, I think, for us to start really thinking about this. And I should also mention, if you're in school buildings that offer a career technical education, they're already doing this every day. Like, we just lean into our CTE instructors and into our CTE infrastructure. They are doing this all the time, right? And they're doing this performance-based mastery and measurement and guess what? Those kids really like those classes.
Yes, they do.
They like being in there. They're learning something that's relevant. So that's the hope, is that we create an infrastructure around the entire academic process, and not just in our CTE classrooms, one that really builds up these skills in students over time. That's a great question. Anybody else? What else do y'all have for me?
This is Olivia. Thank you so much for I sat through your entire presentation. And
Hi, Dr. Oxenden.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I heard you, but I didn't know you were online. I can't see you. You're like
I
speaking
wanted-
like the
I'm
good
gonna
Lord
have to
himself.
leave. I'm going to have to leave at the lunch hour, but I wanted to stay for most of the morning. My question has to do with this. My background is, I began this career as a classroom teacher, so I always revert back to that when I'm hearing about new ideas such as anything that's going to impact the classroom. My question is this, and maybe your team will be able to work through this over time, because I hear 3 to 5 years, which sounds reasonable, so that the classroom teacher won't have one additional rubric to manage. How are you thinking to streamline the work of the classroom teacher?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and you know, for us, we're thinking about it very holistically and integrating, you know, the deeper learning into the currently successful lesson plans, right? So it shouldn't be just another thing. It's just another. It's an awareness, and it's an intentionality about creating lessons and opportunities for students to demonstrate these skills, not recreating the wheel, and it's not another thing, it is kind of the thing that we should really be paying attention to as students continue to learn and grow. So, but you know, you're right, there's the impression out there that this is another thing, and oh my goodness, our teachers have had a lot comes down on them, right? And we know that we're very sensitive to that. And so the idea is to empower them to use these tools in such a way that it doesn't feel like one more thing. And when we can move away from just the single myopic look at test scores as the only way to measure school accountability, it creates room, and maybe other things can come off the table for our teachers so that they can integrate this more holistically into their teaching. That's an imperfect answer, I know that, but we're going to continue to work towards the right balance so that our classroom teachers feel really empowered by this and not more burdened by it.
Right. And you may have already thought about this idea, but I think it would be real useful to, maybe it's going to be in Winston-Salem Foresight, to find some schools, districts and schools that are a leg forward on this work, and maybe they could serve as pilots on how they are blending, integrating, and synthesizing this work.
Yes,
in their
100%.
teaching.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll also just quickly highlight some work that's happening in the Northwest. So in Catawba County, they're working with the 2 other local school districts, and all 3 of them are collaborating on creating the lesson plans and the activities that really support the portrait of a work and integration into. They have spent a lot of time, like they are early, like they're on the bleeding edge, not just the leading edge of doing this work. So we see this happening throughout the entire state, and it's powerful. When they're collaborating, when we see even like that regional type of coming together and meeting of minds and you know, getting out of their silo and really collaborating, like that's one of our durable skills. Right?
Surely is.
Yep. So it is really cool, and we do have several districts throughout the state that we can start to really monitor and measure to see how they're doing it and lift up those best practices.
So I'm going to be not very popular when I do this. Jeremiah is one of my former students. Jeremiah, why don't you take on and become a pilot in this work?
Absolutely.
Yeah, where are you, Jeremiah? I love this. Where are you? What school district?
I'm in the public schools of Robeson County.
Love it. Yes,
Jeremiah,
we can lean right in and love
I
it.
would encourage you to think about this, because I'd love to see an American Indian school system, I mean, where we have the numbers of American Indian kids, to be one of the pilots. I'm using the word pilot loosely, but something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes, we could certainly support that at the AIM conference too. If you when you guys come up, let us work with you directly. We can put them in touch with Battelle for Kids and make sure that you've got some tools to kind of kickstart that.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Yes.
Love it.
Me too.
Glad I hung around.
But I'll need the support of everybody in the room, so I need everybody available.
I bet you'll get it.
Okay, anything else? Well, this has been, again, my honor, my privilege to be here in front of you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm going to look forward to working with Jeremiah as we help pilot this in Robeson County. And for anybody who has more questions, and then also working with Maria and get her plugged in a lot of things. And yeah, really appreciate you all having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those insights.
Madam Chair, if we could just acknowledge the arrival of our new SACY member, Ms. Tamara, and we can go ahead and get her sworn in, and then we'll break for lunch.
All right, thank you.
I apologize, I was in a little car accident.
accident on the way, so, but I'm good.
We're glad you're safe in here. If you would just join me in the front up here for your swearing in.
I, Tamara Carter, do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as a member of North Carolina State Advisory Council on Indian Education. I will, to the best of my ability, advise the SBE on effective educational practices for American Indian students, explore programs that raise academic achievement and graduation rates among American Indian students. Advise the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction on ways to improve coordination and communication for the benefit of American Indian students affected by state and federal programs administered at the state level. Prepare and present an annual report to the SBE, tribal organizations, to conferees at the annual North Carolina Indian Unity Conference, and advise the SBE on any other aspect of American Indian education when requested by the state board, educators, parents, students, business leaders, and other constituents.
Thank you and welcome to SACE.
Thank you.
Can we bring them all back up for a picture?
Sure, yeah.
Holding up.
The rival.
All right, just careful. At this time, we're going to break for lunch. Miss Crow is going to bless the food for us.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the privileges of this day. We thank you, dear Lord, for the opportunity that we have to serve our American Indian students. And we pray that we would just look to you for strength and guidance in all of our decision making that we make for our American Indian students. Bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies and us to thy service. In thy name we pray. Amen.
So just for our listeners on YouTube and for purposes of everybody in the room, we will return promptly at 1 p.m. Seated and ready to go.
Rodney, thanks for the pictures.
Which is still live. So you and Michael can sit up.
Okay.
ask that question, so we're waiting for an answer. We're checking in. Yes.
Ms. Dorothy, did you already pass it out on this side?
Yes, I did, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Angelique.
Hey, Rob. Take care, bud.
I see you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.